Hello, welcome to Slaughterhouse Talks. I'm Porkchop,
And I'm Dr. Graves.
and today we're talking about
Zombie from 1979.
Lucio Fulci's classic.
Heck yeah. This is our first Italian horror film.
Yeah, we'll come back to Italian,
But it's not a Giallo. Oh, no.
No,
It's
it's
an
not.
Italian gore film.
Basically, yeah.
Uh-huh.
You have to wait till the last, 20 minutes, if that, for the gore.
The real good gore.
Real good gore. I mean, they'll show up some bits, but yeah. It's one of those movies we just gotta wait and see.
So good. So, if you watched the previous episode, we talked about Dawn of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Really good movie. Giorgio Romero. It's a classic. 10 out of 10. We mentioned in that previous episode the backstory that Romero and Dario Argento, classic Italian giallo and horror director, and just a great director, they started to talk and they both agreed to split kind of the screenplay and the production. And when Dawn of the Dead came over to Italy and the rest of Europe, it went over and under the title Zombie.
Yeah.
Because Night of the Living Dead existed, but it's not Dario's.
No.
So it's Romero, so he has to do his own, timeline.
They basically just, what was it? They shared the script, and he could do Dario could do distribution of
his version. It has more goblin music, and it has, I think, different shots.
There's some different shots, but basically the same movie.
It's that one's like an hour less, like a couple minutes less than the American cut, just because of censor issues.
Yeah, with the leader in time, but
so when that happened, it went under the title Zombie, and when it was released, there wasn't a lot of because the marketing went out, and in Italy, horror films getting more popular.
Yeah,
more of the mindset, and if you watch Italian horror films, my God, they're amazing. They're really shot good. So good,
beautiful.
So in that mindset, Dawn of the Dead is released, aka Zombie.
Yeah,
and then it's up for free reign to be put into any sequel ideas, because it's not a Romero thing in Italy.
No, it's just his own little.
It's his own little universe now. So Lucio Fulci comes in, who's again great director. He does more of the gore stuff, and he's interested more in gore, but he's also interested more in this weird H.P. Lovecraft kind of more insanity-esque stuff, which we'll see in The Beyond, which is great. Classic. Would definitely recommend The Beyond if you want just insanity.
That's really good.
So he writes a script, and it's called Zombie. Comes to the US and the rest of Europe, the film will be called Zombie. The rest in Italy, it's called Zombie 2: Flesh Eaters.
Yeah.
So we'll be calling it Zombie, but it's Zombie 2 to our Italian audiences. You're watching Zombie 2.
Yeah, you're listening to Zombie 2, even though
it's Zombie to the rest of us.
Yeah.
So,
trying to get some casting characters real quick.
Before this whole thing gets down, let's introduce to who we'll be staring at for the next almost 2 hours.
We got Ian McCulloch, Ian McCulloch plays Peter, who's the reporter.
Mm-hmm. Not our main character, but secondary main character.
Yeah, I would say that. We've got Richard Johnson, who plays Dr. David, who's done some stage play stuff, basically, and he passed away in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Tisa Farrow plays Anne Bowles, who is the daughter of Dr. Menard.
That's, of Dr. David.
That's why I get confused with all the doctor characters in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters that all come into this film, and then you'll see them for 2 or 3 scenes. There's characters at the beginning that are surgeon and surgeon boss, basically, and then they're never seen again, and then the cop characters are never seen again, so it's okay. There's a lot of characters where you're wait, who the fuck is this?
I got confused. Oops.
So Anne is the daughter of Dr. David, and she is more of the main character, I'd say, because the whole plot's based around
her finding her dad.
Yeah.
We've got Ogla Karatos, who plays Paula, who is the wife to Dr. Menard, who gets an awesome kill later.
Classic kill.
Al Cliver plays Brian.
Alan, bearded Brian.
Al's done some stage stuff. That's really it. Oretta Gay plays Susan, who is Brian's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got our final character, Stefania Di Mario, who plays the main nurse in the hospital.
Oh, okay.
And she's done, she did Zombie and then a whole bunch of Nazi sex films.
Oh.
The ones with like Elga the wolf. Yeah.
Yeah, Nazi exploitation.
Yeah,
films.
exploitation. She did a whole bunch of those after Zombie.
So I read one of the main characters for the island. I tried to find the actor; it's kind of mixed, but Lucas. Lucas will show up later, and he plays a big role in the history of the backstory
of like what's going on and then what's the quote unquote voodoo.
Hoodoo.
Voodoo.
The man with the boo. Anyway, so depending on what version you watch of Zombie. By the way, we watched the USA UK English dub.
Yeah,
it's fucking awful. I like the just subtitles, but the dub's okay. There's just sometimes it kind of seems like disjointed.
I've only seen dubbed.
Okay, so you don't really have the.
I don't have the. So should I watch sub?
I'd recommend sub.
Okay.
Not to be like those snooty like what's better, but like if you want the original, it sub because it's Italian anyway. So depending on what version of Zombie you watch as well, there were two types of openings. I watched the VHS
of course we did.
version originally.
Yeah.
And it opens with a shot that happens later in the film when it's talked about the backstory where Dr. David's corpse is put to rest and he gets up and it's a longer shot and then it's the gun pointing at camera and shoots and then it's Dr. Menard in darkness saying, tell the whole crew we can leave now.
Yeah. Which one did we watch?
In any other cut, we watched the, I think it's the main cut. I think we watched the Blu-ray cut.
Oh.
In any any release, even the Blu-ray cut, it just opens with the gun, the corpse coming up and then the gun shooting it. And I don't know why. That's just been a weird release problem, but whatever version you watch, there's like two different openings.
Which one do you prefer?
I kind of like the one we have now, where it's like it's kind of this quicker, because then you're just like, wait, what am I watching?
We just know it's a corpse.
So Dr. Menard shoots the corpse, and the boat can leave well to tell the whole crew, and it cuts to the amazing zombie theme.
Yeah, the zombie theme is awesome.
Sounds so good, but if you've never seen an Italian horror film, Italian horror films have really good music.
They have really great music. You should look if you haven't looked into Goblin, look into Goblin as well.
I remember I just put it at the end here so I can get this on the notes.
We've got
the music for this whole movie is done by Fabio Frizzi, really good, and his group with Gregorio, I'm gonna slaughter it, Casillo, really great, like dual team. Like Fabio's the main composer and writer, and I think he does some of the synthesized stuff.
Cool. Really good music because like you're kind of going into it with after if you've seen Dawn of the Dead, you get the music of Dawn of the Dead. It's kind of like limited, but it works. I like it. If you haven't seen Zombie and you go to Day of the Dead, if you didn't know Zombie existed, you go to Day. The music in Day of the Dead is interesting. We'll talk about it when we get there. But when you go from Dawn of the Dead into Zombie, it still works in the same vibe. The music for it still works, but you're watching an Italian film. The way I connected, because originally we were planning just to do the top 3 George A. Romero movies. Yeah. But if you watch all 4, like you put Zombie into the movie, and just think of like the events after Dawn of the Dead. It's the same world, quote unquote. Yeah, I can believe that to be the same world. It's just in a different part of it. And if you put it in a different sense, because there is no outbreak yet. So the movie, because when the outbreak happens, so the movie opens with a shot of New York, which is like, okay, Italian movie, what about it? What are we doing in New York? We're in New York. 1980. I know it's 1979, but Lucio wanted to make it in the 80s. We're in the 80s now. And it's Harbor Patrol. I call them cops, excuse me. They're Harbor Patrol. They're Harbor Patrol. And they're boating around and they get reported in that there's just a rogue boat just sitting out. And it's just floating. It's like, okay, we should probably check it out. And they're talking about like, hey, maybe we'll get a bonus if we, check it out. It's like, yeah, whatever. Just go check it out. We get this main cop with black hair at Harbor. Let's call him Pete. Pete? Because he doesn't have a name. Pete goes down while the main one's with ginger heads in the back. He's just like scouting around. We'll call him Brian as well. There's another Brian. So Pete goes downstairs and instantly we know what's up now. There's a bunch of just trash everywhere. There's bugs on the ship somehow. It could happen. Little critters. Could happen. There's bugs and he looks around and then there's this high pitch. Throughout the movie there's this high pitched sound that you're gonna love. I hate it.
it comes out and we get to see our first zombie, and oh my god, he is very impressive. He's a big old zombie.
He's a big zombie.
Busts through and he bites Pete on the neck and like you get that awesome like slowish rip of flesh and like the blood just sprays.
That's great.
So crazy.
So good.
And so Pete's dead. And the big zombie comes up and Brian sees him and
takes some shots and he finally gets a headshot.
he's like, what the, I'm retired, stop walking. He shoots him and finally gets him down and we get
The zombie falls into
so that goes into the ocean and now we know it's dead and now we get to the freaking news anchor, station, the big building.
Peter.
And by the way, the boss is Lucio Fulci.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Just making a cameo, and we get this nice zoom out, and we get to see Peter's side of the face. We don't get to hear him talk, so we're kind of like, oh, that's what he looks like. And then the boss is like, Peter, get out of there. And somehow this is riveting news to like newspaper, but missing, boat in the middle of ocean, go report it. That sounds like a great thing to report.
He said it's like a top story.
So it's like, all right, you, Peter, you need to go and check this out. And one of the lines again with Italian movies is. They're kind of tough to get into because of the bigotry, sexism. There's a lot of stuff because Italians think they're pure.
Sure.
The purest kind of mindset. So he looks at Peter and is like, don't be this way because your dad owns like the business. But then he's like, keep the British out of your pants. And he's it's like okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And we get the cut down to the harbour, and they've pulled the boat in, thank God. And Anne is there getting questioned by some really soulless, dickish detectives and police. She has no clue. She's just like, this is my father's boat, and like she's just like, where is he? And it's like,
we'd like to ask you that question.
Yeah, why don't you know, huh?
When you tell us, huh?
It's like, well,
I just got here.
I don't know. And Peter's getting at least some sort of information, but he, not enough. So. Well, that's what happened. We cut to this autopsy.
Yeah, we got to the autopsy of Peter.
So let's call him Dr. Steve and the one with the afro. Surgeon Barry.
Yeah.
Barry
they don't have
afro.
names in the credits.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So big boss surgeon comes in and is like checking the corpse, and he's kind of reading off what we already knew, but like there's a big bite mark. Can you explain this? And it's like, no, I can't explain this. And then he kind of belittles Barry for like not having sharp tools, and it's like,
you're not going to be a great surgeon if you're not going to keep your tools sharp. It's like, I understand. And we get a little.
The camera pulls down. We get a little Frankenstein.
Yeah, we get a little hand movement of Peter,
and that whole movement will explain for the ending.
Yeah,
but I'm not. I'll probably wait for the ending.
Just wait.
But we know that the corpse of Peter is getting up,
and that's the only time we see it.
And that's our second quote unquote zombie in the movie.
Yeah.
So now it's nighttime. We've done more investigating, and there's a squad car police officer waiting outside the boat, but he's not doing a great job because
Anne sneaks on.
Peter's already in there. And Anne sneaks on and like she's looking around and Peter almost gives her a heart attack and she almost like makes an alarm, and he has information and she has more information, so let's try and make it seem much more sense. And he found a note that the father wrote in the boat and he's willing to give it up,
just to help fight.
Just to help, really. Just want to make the story more juicy. And she drops the lantern he was holding and
the
cop comes in because he heard it, and it's like, okay, well, shit, the cop's here. Let's just make up this whole scenario. So we're gonna be lovers, and like we're gonna have a little fight, and he gets away with it.
They get away with it, and then the cop, after all the bits, are just like, back and forth. He's like, all right, get out of here.
Get out of here. It's like, oh wow, that works, I guess.
Don't try that, but
if you're ever in trouble, just pretend you're lovers.
Yeah.
Having a quarrel.
Yeah, having a little quarrel. We get.
So, you want to go ahead?
We cut to, after that, Peter on the phone reading the letter and talking to his boss. And he's just like, all right, we're planning a trip to this island. That's all we know. And later on, we get to know the name of this beautiful island, but it's called Matul. But he's just on the phone and he's just like, make up the reservations. You're beautiful. I love you. Moi. And they get to the airport and they're going to Matul.
They arrive at the island, they get into a taxi, and they're like, hey, where can we get a ship? And it takes some bribing, but they get the information that you can find, like, a ship.
Yeah.
And he goes to the main. They go to the main dock and they find the bay and the harbor, and they reach this little ship at the end with like, hey, specifically, hey, where are these two Americans? And they're like, find them, Brian and Susie. Susan, sorry.
Susie.
And they're basically just like, hey, like this is Anne. Her dad's missing, and it's on this specific island. As soon as they mention the island, it's just like, oh.
Do you two know how to fly?
You know,
captain a boat?
Yeah, I've been on a boat before, and she's like, well, I was born on a boat, and then he's like, yeah.
Peter's just like, yeah, I've been on a boat.
Sure.
And Brian and Susan don't want to go, but it's just like, we'll get to the island, but we're not staying.
This is our honeymoon.
Yeah, we're on vacation too, you know.
Yeah, they're very reluctant, but they'll do it. So they get on the boat, and then we cut to Dr. Menard in his home, finishing up some tests, and
someone's trying to radio out Matul first.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to reach the island and they can't, and then it's just Dr. David has done something.
The wife comes in, and the wife knows what he's been doing. Actually, there's this whole thing that we'll learn later, but Dr. Menard's not actually doing the thing he's been saying he's doing.
No.
And she knows what's happening, and she's kind of a mental breakdown, but I'm on her side. They have this like little quarrel basically that turns to a domestic because Dr. Menard slaps straight up, quote unquote calm her down, but I ain't gonna do shit. And she's just like, I hate you, and he's like, well, I'm gonna go to the lab because I'm gonna do my work. And in his mindset, he's resolved this domestic, but she's not done with this. So Dr. Menard goes to his, I can't believe it, he's got a little servant.
Yeah.
And says, yeah, just look after the wife in the house and do everything, basically. I'm going to go to the lab. He's like, okay.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll look after the house.
I'll look after everything. Whatever you say. And then it cuts to everyone back on the ship. I keep saying ship. I'm so sorry. Boat. It's a boat.
You can see them slowly set off. Like after all this time, they haven't moved, and then they come back to the boat, and now it's moving.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there it goes.
Like, what were you doing the entire time? Just staring at each other?
And they start questioning about like they've gone to different islands, and they're like, there's plenty of islands that don't show up on maps. Like you see these ones we pass by, and they're like, any could be Matul, and Anne's losing faith, but Peter's like, no, we're gonna look for it. We'll find it. We'll definitely. And like Brian's just like, hey, don't rely on us forever. We got our own shit to do.
Again, we're on vacation.
And the wife turns, she's like, hey, we can stop here and like I want to take some underwater pictures. It's like, well, that's a great idea. Why not? We need another break after we didn't move for 20 minutes.
I don't know. It's an Italian movie, so Susan just gets completely nude. Well, she keeps it underwater.
Yeah, you want to keep it classy.
But she gets completely nude and half naked. Jumps into the water and they try and get pictures, and you can take that.
Yeah, she's swimming around in the music.
It sounds great.
The music changes and it's like instantly
like underwater.
It's like Die Dogs, Mario 64 just swimming around, and it's like she gets a couple flashes off, and then a fucking zombie's under the water, like for real. After like she dodges from like a shark.
Yeah.
And she thinks she's gonna get attacked by it. She turns and there's a zombie under there, and she's like swims back up, and it becomes one of the best scenes from the movie.
Zombie versus shark.
Yeah, zombie versus shark, and it's like a good 3-minute scene of just zombie versus shark, and neither of them win, but the shark gets the upper hand by biting his arm off.
It's a shark.
Yeah, so the shark, I'd say, wins, but the zombie doesn't die. It just swims away. But he gets to rip the arm off the zombie.
While that's happening, Susan then gets back on the boat.
It's having a little panic attack, huge panic. It's like a man's under there, and everyone's like, "What?
A man?
Are you serious?
What are you talking about, a man?
No, there was a man under there," and it's like, she wasn't lying.
She's not lying.
So we go back to Dr. Menard, and he's doing like some little examinations on himself. Does a little blood test.
Yeah, he takes his own blood.
It is confusing the first time you watch it, because I don't know. This isn't Lucio's first film, but he always directs in a style which is kind of incoherent, I think. But he takes the blood sample, he puts it under the test, and we don't really
see anything.
We don't really know what this means. We're just supposed to mean like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? But then we're more concerned about what patients he might have. So
sorry.
You want to go through?
We already talked about Peter and spotting Matul. Yeah, they spawn the tool and they're like, let's go for it. We get back to the hospital as Menard checks on a patient.
And
It's just
there's
simple
plenty
things.
of corpses in the background
There's
of
a
the
lot of
hospital.
corpses.
And what we're slowly discovering is like all the
Lucas-
patients in there are just dying.
They're just dying, and he's like, checking their reflexes and stuff, and
They're all just dying.
slowly
There's a
just
mysterious death happening, and Lucas
And
him-
Lucas, his I would say, just a townsman
A
who's like,
commandant.
yeah, he's friends with him. He tells David to be like, all the locals are leaving, It's like, what? On that stupid voodoo?
Yeah, the whole science
Menard.
versus voodoo.
Yeah, well, yeah, that big thing that keeps showing up in the movie is just like, you don't be ridiculous. It's science and voodoo. Don't fight it.
And to be fair, the zombie explanation's never really
There is no
explained.
explanation.
Exactly, so you can kind of put it down to, do you want to believe the voodoo or do you want to believe
A science mishap. You choose.
Yeah, whichever one you think is comfortable, which I like because it's like, there's no argument.
Lucas stares dead in Bernard's eyes and he just says, you should be afraid. And he's just like, what? Fine. So while we're doing this, the nurse explains to Menard, I think it's either Lucas or the nurse explained to him that there's a local tribe of the infected that have escaped from that certain holding area that the townsfolk have made.
Yeah.
And they're just in the jungle. They're just out. So you can talk about this next beautiful scene, but basically zombies there's a lot of just quick cuts to POV. So I think it's just zombies that have recently escaped just walking through the jungle, and it's just cutting to different POVs.
Just montages.
Yeah.
And while it's still happening, we got this beautiful zombie montage, like we were saying, with POVs, and like, oh crap, the wife's at home.
Oh yeah, she's still at home.
And the servant's sitting outside front, just messing with a dog, and he hears a sound. He goes off, and
That's it. I think he's dead.
I think he's dead, and we get some zombie creeping cam, and then it goes through just normal cam into the window, and she's having a shower. She comes out, Italian film. You go, breasts.
Breasts. Yeah.
That has to be the number one thing, and
Sure.
some scratching and stuff happens outside the door and outside the house, and it's like, what the hell? And she's like, oh, this is freaky stuff.
She gets her gown on.
She's got to get dressed for this. And
She's still really wet, fresh out shower, but she puts a gown on.
Yeah, it didn't even dry out. And then some banging, some stuff falls over, and suddenly she sees a hand come through the door, and she's like, I'll have it that. So she smashes the door, and it damages his little zombie fingies, and the zombie manages to get it back open, puts his hand through the hole it's made and grabs her by the head, and there's this very pointy, very, very sharp, very friendly looking piece of wood that's just pointing directly in that nice place. So the zombie's like, well, you know what, this is missing something.
I'm gonna use this.
I'm gonna use this. This is missing something. A decoration. So this zombie's sick. He's sadistic. Just slowly pulls her head forward.
Oh yeah.
And then it goes into her eye, straight up.
Straight up.
And then breaks off.
Yeah, it breaks off in her eye.
And she's dead.
She's done so deep.
She's dead. It's amazing.
Peter, Ann, Susan, and Brian get him a tool. There's some zombies in the woods just walking around.
A lot of zombie
POV. And so the result of the zombie and shark attack, I guess, has caused a broken drive shaft on the boat. So they need to fix that before sundown. And then we get a cut to Dr. Menard just shooting his patient zombies.
Yeah.
Because it's
one by one.
It's just just going down his fucking hospital bed's just bang, bang.
Yeah.
I don't know why. We'll explain.
And
they really explain it.
And Menard's gonna go off and have a little drink sesh for himself, but before that, he's like, Lucas comes in and it looks like they couldn't fix the boat, so everyone on the boat sends off flares, and Lucas comes out and it's like, I saw rockets in the sky, and it's like, Dr. Menard's like, well, I'm gonna go check, and he obviously knows they're flares, so he goes down, and it kind of just cuts to them already in the car.
Yeah,
they're just like, oh hi, they picked him up. So we just assume that he picked them up, and they're driving back to the original place, not their home for us. But no, he gets a whole backstory about well, now I know who you are. Let me tell you about your dad who died.
Yeah.
So now we get the whole backstory where the dad was ill from the same disease that was killing off everyone, and he's like, I don't want to.
They're using the dad's blood on other people.
Yeah, and the
it's
dad basically agreed to be a guinea pig.
Yeah, because the dad is patient 0.
Yeah. So he gets everyone else infected with this new source of like blood. Yeah. They have to test, and now everyone else is a guinea pig, and
which we get. During that little conversation, we get the awesome like connection to the beginning shot.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, who's this person who gets shot at the beginning of the movie? Who is that? And we get a great just like cut where it's just like, oh, the Dr. Menard killed Anne's dad because he was turning into a zombie. And then we confirm it, like, get everyone on the boat.
And because of this, the actor who played Dr. Menard, he also narrated the trailer for this. And there's a great line when they're in the car and they're kind of talking about the disease now. And just one of the great lines is just like, whatever it is, it makes the dead get up and walk. I love that. It's just like, they don't even know what it is, but this is what causes the dead. And he tells the group that...
he tells them about like the science of zombies and then maybe voodoo, and Brian and Peter think it's all bullshit. They're like, oh, come on, quit playing with us. And they get back to the hospital.
And the Dr. Menard's like,
well, everyone's just like, do you need us to do anything while we're here?
Yeah, it's just like a weird like filler scene. It's just like, well, since you're here, go check on my wife that I'm not going to check on.
Go check on my wife. I'm busy. Go check on my wife.
And my sub.
Oh,
yeah.
He doesn't say that. I think he just
no, but I would like to say that because I feel for him. And, it's like, okay, so we're going to go down, and they do manage to get through, and they get to the house, and
oh, no, there's zombies eating.
There's zombies eating her. She's all messed up.
She's all over the place.
Yeah, they're having a good lunch, and they have to leave, and these 2 zombies appear, and Brian and Peter take any domestic tool they could find, so it's like... shovel and like an antler piece, and they just whack these zombies in the head, and they gotta go.
It goes back quickly to the hospital where they're checking on a new patient, and it's Fritz. I guess is a personal friend of the doctor, or he just he says in a weird way that Fritz is the only other white person on the island,
which I don't like.
But he's just like, Fritz, the other white man.
Yeah, he's got broken arm.
I think there's a bit.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a connection between him and the doctor because he seems very saddened. And then we get back to the gang messing around with zombies.
And they're driving through and they're doing pretty well. And then, because we want to make the movie longer, we got to break the car.
Brian just rams into something. I think he's trying to plow down like this bush to get through, but he just ends up
hitting a tree.
Messing up the car.
And it breaks Peter's ankle.
Yeah.
So now they have to go through all of the forest to get back to the lab.
You get back to the lab, and the doctor goes around killing more zombies in the hospital for some reason. I think he's just ending it all, so it's just like he doesn't need research. He's just killing all the things he's experimented on. Yeah. And then we get to
they've run through, and
Brian and Susan are like exploring this little jungle area.
Peter had to go rest because he's hobbling on one leg. And they're like, okay, so Anne and Peter go to one side of the bush, and they're laying down, and Brian and Susan go to the other side to like lay down too, and like they got the more interesting part because it was a cemetery. Yeah, they found a helmet, a conquistador. I can't say that word. Conquistadorian helmet, and it's a conquistadorian graveyard, and they're like, "Wow, history! Look how much history!"
Anne is scared,
and they're kind of admitting that they love each other.
Yeah, well, they don't really say much. Anne says, "I'm scared," and Peter doesn't say anything, and then they start making out. Yeah. And then we get an awesome hand shot.
Oh yeah, the hand comes out from behind.
Yeah, and grabs Anne's hair.
Yeah, and the other hand grabs Peter's ankle
and squishes it.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. Oh, and then after all this, we're trying to stop this. The poster zombie appears.
Oh yeah, so on the other side of the bush, while that's all happening, a nice corpse rises, and it's literally, if you look at the poster of the film, it's the most famous zombie on there. It just appears and bites Susan on the neck.
Yeah, Susan is scared and watching him rise out of the ground, and she doesn't do anything. She just stays there.
Yeah.
And then she gets a great like throat ripped out effect, where it's
Oh
just
my
like a
God,
hole
yeah.
and you can see it. And Peter runs in. Peter O'Brien runs in with a shovel or something, just smashes.
Oh my God, yeah. So everything was going on, like they got away from the zombies, Anne and Peter
They
comes
just
in.
pushed him off.
Yeah, Peter comes in and grabs a cross.
Oh, it's a cross.
And just like cuts through the top half of the zombie's head. It's so good. It's a good effect.
As Susan's dying, we get a Brian, just like a sad moment, which I can't go on, I must stay here, and Peter's just like, come on, we gotta leave, we gotta get to the hospital. So
while they're getting
we
back
get
to the
a
hospital,
montage with the theme, the great theme of the zombies coming out of the ground, zombies walking around, zombies just heading where they're heading.
And they finally get back to the lab.
Yeah.
Which we needed anyway, and they get back to the lab, and
Menard,
now they have to tell Menard, like, so the zombies are real, and sadly your wife is dead.
Well, Peter tells him. Well, Peter doesn't really tell him.
No,
Dr.
Menard just looks at them and just says, "My wife." He just like doesn't say anything. He just like shakes his head. Basically, it's like, oh, okay. So the zombies are slowly as hell approaching the lab. So it gives them enough time to lock it down and make Molotovs.
Yeah, so they need to they do a lockdown, like you said. They make Molotovs.
Find guns, pick up some extra guns.
Some zombies get in. Peter gets a zombie kill with a shovel to the head, which is like the first. I counted the zombie kills in this one, like I did with. So that's the first kill in the hospital, a shovel to the head by Peter. Dr. Menard gets a bit.
Oh yeah, he gets bit in the neck.
He gets bit in the neck.
Oh no, he gets bit in the cheek and that kills him.
Yeah, so Menard's dead.
Yeah.
That doctor's dead. We get another kill with a headshot. Brian gets a kill, so that's kill 2 is a headshot with a pistol.
Lucas was making a Molotov and gets bitten.
Yeah, Lucas gets bitten. We get zombie kill 2, 3, and 4 by Brian. When the nurse is stuck in the room, and Brian kills like these zombies, and then as soon as the nurse turns around,
zombie Lucas
grabs like Brian
her.
runs away, and then zombie Lucas grabs the nurse and kills her.
So that's great.
Kill number 5 is Lucas zombie.
And
then we get outside because it's like we just need to move. Like we need to get to this back area.
Yeah, and now the whole lab's on fire because these Molotovs.
Yeah, and it's real sketch. But we get quite a few kills, where it's just like Brian and Peter taking
just
shots,
unloading. Just a whole gun.
So we get 18 kills in total in that hospital, of just like headshots and zombies being on fire or building collapsing on zombie on fire. It was just a lot of just like trying to search through corpses.
And they finally get out, and Susan Zombie appears, and Brian can't kill her, so she bites him.
Yeah, bites his arm.
Yeah.
And
a lot of arm biting.
But basically,
well now
Brian is gonna succumb to his injuries. We know this already. But Peter and Anne, I'm sorry, we're like, let's just get out of here.
So they get back to they find another boat.
Yeah, they found the other boat that the doctors used.
For the crew.
Yeah, so it's like, it's a good boat. It's not gonna do damage.
And Brian slowly just succumbs to it, and like basically he faints, but we're gonna say he's dead.
He's dead.
And Peter locks him in the back room because now we know this whole thing.
Zombie. I would have just tossed the body off.
I would have.
But Peter needs evidence.
They need evidence to say that, like, if we're gonna get back, and you said this whole thing, we need evidence for this. But it's like, hey, let's turn on the radio for something nicer, and they hear that
a radio broadcast of
New York. The dead have risen, and there's carnage, and it pretty much is going to happen around the rest of the world.
And we get a scream in the radio station, and then zombies overtaking New York while walking on the New York Bridge. Is a great shot.
All thanks to that.
All thanks to Peter.
All thanks to the Peter Harbor Patrol zombie.
Yeah, if he didn't get bitten, he wouldn't have risen, and then New York would have been fine. But he did get bitten.
So it's just. Brian starts waking up from back of the dead, and he's like kicking in the door, and Peter and Anne are on the boat, and you're just hoping that they're okay.
It cuts to black. It's just like a 90s bit where they look at each other, and it cuts to black. Dun, dun.
And that's Zombie.
That's Zombie. What did you give this?
I give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10? And you...
I gave it 9 out of 10 because of that high pitched sound, and
I hate that sound.
there are a lot of bits, but they're just kind of waiting for stuff to happen.
That's true.
But other than that, I give it a 9 out of 10. It's a really good zombie movie.
I gave it a 9.2. It was a little confusing again with the Doctor characters. It was just like names and cutting back editing styles. It was like, is that the same guy? It looks like the same guy, and maybe it's not. It's still a solid zombie movie.
Gore's amazing.
Gore's great, and I love most of the music except from that high pitch.
Yeah, I'd say the high pitch really kills it. That's the unfortunate thing.
But that is Zombie, everyone.
Zombie 2.
Zombie 2 for Italian. But I'd recommend watching it at least. You gotta at least watch it.
Yeah, if you're not interested in like zombie films or interested in Italian films, do it. But if you're interested in zombie films, do it as well. Because you gotta watch it.
It's a classic.
It's so good.
Oh well, thank you for listening.
Watch more movies.
And have a ghoulish day.
Goodbye.